Hi everyone. So for today's recording, we're going to be working on a red background that I built in Photoshop. This is just a stock file that I found from a website like Unsplash. And then I broke it apart in Photoshop into individual layers, and I'm going to show you how to animate it. We're going to do a few things. We're going to animate the individual layers with position controls. We're going to create reflections by duplicating layers and then using mats, After Effects mats, in the files. And then we're going to also do a little bit of text animation at the end. So I'll try to provide tips for things that you can search and look up if you have any trouble. And I'll try to also show you how to do everything in this video. So the first thing I need to do is import my file. So you can just go to File, Import File. Remember that depending on the type of file you are working on, it needs to be brought in as a composition if it has multiple layers. So if your file is like a Photoshop file with multiple layers, you need to set it as composition retain layer sizes. If it is a file that is just an individual photograph or video, then you can bring in this footage. So press open. Leave it as editable layer styles. I apologize for the noise. I think those are some maintenance people outside. So I'm going to double click on the background here, and then this opens my composition. So just to show you that one more time, when I import the file, I can, whoops, set it as composition, open, okay. And then double click that here to import it. So it's this little film icon. It looks red, green, and blue, like a film strip. You double click on that, and that's going to be your composition. So that's going to open to the original Photoshop file composition. I built this one in 1920 by 1080 so that it would be compatible with the sort of standard HD size. If you're unsure about that, you can go to composition settings. Up at the top, you go to composition comp settings, and then you can double check. So I always set my duration to 1 minute. If you look at this, the first part is milliseconds, and then seconds, minutes, and then hours. So I always set it to 1 minute because that breaks apart really nicely. And so when I'm working, it's easy to see where I'm at in the timeline. And then you always want to set this to 24 frames per second. In animation, we always work with 24 because it divides really nicely. In video, they work with 30. In animation, they work with 24. So that's okay. So the first thing I want to do is create some reflections in the water. So if you'll notice, we have a bunch of different layers here. We have a sky layer, a sun layer, cloud layer, water, which is just kind of a duplicate of the sky, plants, and then mountains. So the first thing I'm going to do is just to visually simplify this, I'm going to turn off the visibility of a few of my layers. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the visibility of the plants. And for now, turn off the visibility of the clouds. That's just a temporary thing that I'm doing so that I can kind of see what I'm working on better. The first thing I want to do is create a reflection of the mountains. So that's an easy thing to do. You can just copy and paste this layer. So you could, let me see. Actually, the easiest way is just Control or Command C and then Control or Command V. Just copy and paste like you would copy and paste text. You could also do Control D or Command D, depending on Mac or PC, and that will just automatically paste it into the timeline for you. So now that I've copied it, what I want to do is flip it vertically. So an easy way to do this is I can just grab the top of the bounding box here and flip it. Because this is going to be a reflection, I actually kind of want to distort it a little bit. So I'm going to have it actually intentionally distort a bit. And then again, because this is a reflection, I'm using my arrow keys to adjust the position. I don't want it to be full opacity, so I'm going to turn down the opacity on this. So It's a good idea to be in the habit of naming things so you know what everything is. So if you press return on the title of this in your project, you can name it reflection. And that way I know that it's the mountain reflection. And then I can drop this down to open the opacity. And I'm not going to animate this. I'm just going to leave it at a lower opacity. I'm just going to set that to 30%. Um, I think 30% looks pretty good. It looks like a convincing sort of reflection, right? Okay. So now that we have that, I can go ahead and just lock the mountain layers. This little lock icon allows you to lock a layer. And basically all that does is it keeps you from moving it around in your composition. So I'm just going to go ahead and lock it because I'm not really going to be moving it at all anymore. And then the next thing that I want to do is animate my sun. So for this, what we're going to do is just do a simple position animation. You can drop down your position options right here under transform, or the shortcut for that is you can click on the word and press P for position. Remember that the different letters kind of correlate with their transform option. So P is position, S is scale, R rotation, T opacity, transparency, and A is anchor point. So we'll go back to P for position. And with my cursor set to 0, I'm going to click on the stopwatch. Now I'm going to drag this over. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to move and position the sun. So I'm going to drag that down. And now I'm going to drag this over to around like 20 seconds or so. And I could click and drag this up, or I could also use my arrow keys. If you hold on your arrow key, this will go up. It does go very incrementally, so if you want to speed that up, you can press Shift plus the arrow key, and that will move it up. So we'll have it stop maybe like right there. I think that looks pretty good. And now if I play that, you can see it kind of slowly come in. So it does take a little while. That's actually moving a bit slower than I want. So if I want to speed that up, I can always move the keyframe in. So I could move the keyframe into like 15. You won't necessarily be graded on the timing though. So if you want yours to be faster or slower, that's fine. You just want it to look kind of natural, look good. So something like that looks pretty good. On the starting position, I might bring that up a little bit because it's taking longer than I really want to get there. Okay, that looks good. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate the sun. So again, Control C, Control V, or Command C, Command V, or the other shortcut is Command D, and just automatically duplicates it. And I'm going to have to set new keyframes for this. So I'm going to click P for position, and I'm going to try to line up my keyframe here. And on this one, I actually want it to be sort of the opposite. So an easy kind of way I can start is just by flipping these keyframes. And if I just want to see that layer while I'm working, I can isolate the layer. So now if I watch that, you can see it like going downward. That looks pretty good. Okay. So with this one, I actually want this layer to be a reflection. So I'm going to have it start a bit above and then move down. And in order to make this look like a reflection, I have to place this layer above the water, and then I'm going to mat it to the water. So this is going to seem a little strange, but I'm going to click on water, and then I have to turn my water back on, visibility wise. And now when this plays, do you see how it shows up only in the water? And I do need to kind of time this a little bit better. I want this to kind of match the other layer. So I'm adjusting my keyframes now. So it should look something like this now. Play it. Again, it's a little bit too fast. So I'm going to actually have it start a bit higher. There we go. That's pretty much perfect. So see how it looks like it's like a reflection of the sun. I want it to look like it's sort of growing. The idea is that it's the sun reflecting on the water's surface. So what I can do now is I want this to be at a lower opacity, like the mountains. So I'm going to set this to maybe like 30. You could possibly, it's a little bit faint, so I might do 35. I think that's a little bit easier to see, maybe even 40. It's a little hard to see. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. So now that we have the sun, we can lock those layers as well. Just the two sun layers. Um, and then go ahead and move on to the next thing. So the next thing that I want to animate is the clouds. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the clouds on and then move my cursor to 0. And I'm going to position these. I'm going to actually like enlarge it a little bit. So you can click on the edge of the bounding box and hold shift to enlarge it a bit. I'm going to do something like that. Maybe have it start here in the middle. And then I can position animate it. So it automatically set a keyframe at the beginning, or it will when I turn on position. Remember P for position. So P opens that up. And then scoot this over. And now I can just click on this layer and drag it over. And so I'm going to do something like that. It's not going to move a ton. I just want it to have like a little bit of movement in there. That looks pretty good. And so now, just like we did with everything else, we have to make the clouds reflect in the water. So again, I'm going to duplicate the clouds. So Command D or Control D for duplicate. I'm going to put the clouds above the water. Another trick I'm going to do is I'm going to flip these vertically. So I could grab the top of the bounding box and flip it, or another way to do that is to right click, go to transform, and then flip vertical. And then I need to kind of make sure that these link up with the reflection. So to move this is going to be a little bit tricky, but if I want to move this with the animation, I have to select the keyframes. And now that those are selected, I can move this up a little bit. And it's going to look a little bit wonky right now. That's okay. Because what we're going to do is we're going to add a matte just like we did earlier. So under the track matte right here, I'm going to click water. And then under opacity, I'm going to set that to 30%. And now the clouds will move in the water. Okay, cool. So if your track matte isn't visible, there's a little icon right here for expand or collapse that you can click to open it. Um, so if you notice anybody in the group chat that doesn't have their track matte visible, please tell them that the expand or collapse controls pane is right there at the bottom left. Okay, so now we have the clouds moving. And the next thing that I want to do is animate the plants. So I'm going to turn the plant layer back on. And at this point, you should make sure to save. So go to File, Save As, and then, label your animation red sky, something like that. Save it into your After Effects files. Hit save. You always want to be saving as you work in case something crashes, and the tool that we're about to use can sometimes cause it to crash, so that's why I'm saving ahead of time. So the tool that I'm going to grab is called the Puppet Position tool. It's right here. It looks like a little thumbtack. So click on that. And then with the plant layer selected, if you want to isolate the layer, you can press right here. This little dot right here isolates the layer. And then Command or Control plus to zoom in. Spacebar gives you the hand tool to move it around. I'm going to place pins to anchor this first, and that may not make a ton of sense to you, but essentially every pin that you place can be moved around. It creates a mesh over the layer. So I'm going to first place anchors, and I'm not going to move these at all. I just want it to hold it still so that my whole bottom of my composition isn't moving around. And then I'm going to place another set of anchors just to make sure that this bottom ground part doesn't move around on me at all. And now I'm going to place some points at the top, and these are going to be what I actually animate. Okay, so now I have 4 points that I can actually animate. So to see the keyframes of this, I have to open under the plants layer, I have to open the effects options, and then open the puppet options, and open the mesh options, and then the deform options. I realize it's a ton of things to click, but again, it's effects, click on the down arrow for puppet, down arrow for mesh, down arrow for deform. And then you have the individual points. So these last four are the ones that I'm going to animate. So what I'm going to do now is move over in my timeline, and I'm just going to animate these about every 2 seconds. And I'm going to have these move a little bit as if they're sort of waving in the wind. And I'm just having them kind of go back and forth essentially. And what's cool is you can copy and paste keyframes. So I could manually animate these back and forth, or I could grab the previous set of keyframes and Command C, Command V to copy and paste them. And so what's cool is like I could even select all four of those sets and copy and paste them. And now I have a ton of animation of the plants just kind of waving around in the wind. And so if you get lost with that, just Google Puppet Pin Tool in After Effects and you can find videos on how to work with it. It can be a little bit complicated. It can make your computer kind of freeze up sometimes if you don't have a lot of RAM. So just do your best. If you find that that tool, I would like for everybody to try it and try playing around with it. I think it really does add some nice subtle animation in there. Um, but if it is freezing, then we can kind of look at it when we're in class if it's causing your app to freeze. But it shouldn't, as long as you have at least 16 gigabytes of RAM in your computer, it shouldn't freeze. It should be fine. Okay, so I can turn off that now, and then you can see the animation actually animate with the plants moving. So this is pretty much it. The last thing I want to do is set the ending of this. So I want this to go to 15, and then I'm going to have a layer come in saying made by. So I'm going to make a new solid layer. Press OK. So up at the top under layer, you go to new solid. I'm going to put that at the top. Open my opacity options and turn this to 0. Turn on opacity. Move it over a couple of seconds and turn it to 100. And then what I'm going to do is grab my text tool and just put made by, oh, whoops, my name, place that where I want it. And then I'm going to animate the opacity of that to match the solid layer. So on opacity, I'm going to turn it to 0. And then when the solid layer fades in, I'm going to have my name fade in a little bit after. and I can place this more central if I want. Um, I can grab the text tool and change the color if I want it to be something a little bit brighter. So obviously you're going to put your name there, but I want you to do a little text animation saying made by your name. And so then we set the ending. So a couple seconds after the name comes in, I'm going to set my end. So remember this little blue work area line is what ends it. The shortcut for that is the letter N on the keyboard. So if you move your cursor, which is this blue line, and press N, that'll set the ending. And then you can go up to Composition, Add to Render Queue. So to export it, we go to Composition. It'll be File, Edit, Composition. So Composition, Add to Render Queue. And then from there, you choose your save location. I'm just going to go to my desktop and then hit render. And there you go. So that's your file. And then once you have that, you can just go to Moodle and upload it to the forum. Okay, awesome. See you guys tomorrow.